Hi, it's Christine Daigle.
I'm Jena Brown.
I'm Kevin Tumlinson.
And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. So my house is very quiet. My wife just got on a plane. And this is actually like I'm the one who normally leaves. Like this is the first time she's actually done this, and I'm not quite sure what to do. Like it feels very weird. Like I got to get my daughter from school later. Like I've got to take care of feeding her and bathing her and putting her to bed. Like all these responsibilities are all of a sudden 100% on me. So I'm slightly stressed today. But I'm also the fun parent, like normally I'm not the one who has to scold her.
Well, you can still be that.
I'm
like
by
just,
myself, like
mom's away. You just get takeout and cake and watch movies all night. Isn't that what you do?
maybe that's the way I gotta go.
Just use the method my mom used when I was a baby. She would put me in a big giant cardboard box with a box of crayons. She'd cut little holes in it so I could see out. A box of cereal in there with me. That's it, all day long.
This explains so much.
This is a true story, by the way.
When you get stressed, do you still go into a cardboard box?
I actually better? You joke, but I do like confined spaces when I'm feeling stressed. But ironically, I get claustrophobic when I'm not stressed. So figure that one out.
Oh boy. Anyway,
moving on.
What is in the news? Let's go into the news.
We're gonna jump right to the news then. Okay, all right. First up, Canva shows AI doesn't come cheap. Canva announced a substantial increase in subscription prices, with some users experiencing a rise up to 300%. For example, the annual subscription in the U.S. has increased from $120 to $500, with a discounted first year at $300. Still a 150% increase. The price increase is attributed to the addition of a suite of AI tools called Magic Studio. These tools allow users to automatically convert content into different formats, translate into multiple languages, and generate images and video. Canva might also be increasing prices to improve its financial standing ahead of a possible initial public offering, aiming to present stronger financials to potential investors. They're going to hurt themselves if that's their strategy.
Yeah.
Because one of the other metrics that they all look at is just membership numbers, not necessarily what everybody's paying for a membership. So if those numbers just all of a sudden drop, I mean, I've got a Canva, subscription. Like I've just kind of blindly been paying it, but this was enough to prompt me to go in and take a look. And if I'm at that price tier, I'm gone.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Canva's been a very convenient and useful tool for me, but I can go back to just Photoshop or even one of the Photoshop alternatives and squeak by without having to pay $500 a year.
Right?
That's crazy.
Like I just use it for layout. I almost never use their graphics. So I'm like, is there an option to opt out of your Magic AI tools because I don't need them?
Yeah.
That's what they should do, right? It's just like a low tier price, that just has the bare minimum of stuff. I mean, one of the reasons why I like Canva at the get-go was because it was so simple to use. Like I had Photoshop and it scared the crap out of me. Every time I loaded it up and I didn't want to deal with it. And somebody told me about Canva and I just started using that. But like once they start loading these guys up with all these different features and functions and this and that, like it gets overwhelming too. And like, I don't necessarily want to use it anymore. And I'm not going to pay that much for it for sure.
I tried using their AI, generative AI, to create images, and because I'm like, well, if I could use Canva, I already pay for Canva. Maybe I don't have to use Midjourney, but everything I got was such absolute garbage that I can't justify that. So I'm not going to pay them extra money for that feature for sure.
Yeah, agree. Their AI tools are not what they need to be charging that at this point in time.
I wonder if it's going to impact other, as AI is becoming more and more of a thing, that they're just going to start incorporating it and then hiking prices on different, I don't know, because doesn't Photoshop also have AI tools?
Yeah, they got a pretty good one actually. One of the things I use that one for is like if I'm building a cover and I have an image that doesn't translate. I want a better wraparound, than just fading to black or something. I can use the generative AI to fill in the rest of the image throughout the back of the cover. So that's been pretty handy.
Did they raise prices when they added all that stuff?
Well, Adobe raises prices with any excuse, so it's hard to say whether that was behind it or not. So the answer is yes, they did, but who knows when they did it. They may have raised the price for the AI stuff, years before they even released that as an option. So that's
I know Amazon is
getting
getting ready to raise prices for Echo devices. Because they're incorporating it. So there's going to be a different tier for like the smart version of Alexa if you decide you want to go that way. Apple just had their developer conference, and they basically showed how AI is being incorporated into everything, starting with the next iPhone. And that might kind of be a game changer, because right now, like, everybody's literally jumping on AI. Like, you could probably go to McDonald's and order something at the drive-thru, and there's probably an AI option.
There was,
point. Everybody's got it. But it's going to come down to simplicity. So like, if it's built into your phone, that's kind of a game changer. Like, why are you going to go to another platform if it's just there, intrinsically there? The problem with all that, though, is like the reason they're having to raise costs is the processing dollars involved. Like, it's very expensive to actually run AI. And they're all trying to figure out how to deal with that. So I don't know. I mean, I would honestly like to see some of these companies just back away from it, just double down on the non-AI and let us, because they're not going to be able to compete with Apple, right? On that level. Like, if they put image generation directly into the phone itself, directly into their apps, Apple's got insane deep pockets. Like, why would they even bother, to try and compete? We'll see where it goes, but
yeah. Well, next item up, the blacklist expands to host, promote novel manuscripts. This comes from Publishers Marketplace. Known for helping producers discover unproduced screenplays since 2005, the blacklist is now venturing into the book publishing world. The aim is to connect unpublished novelists with industry professionals, including authors, agents, and film and TV producers. Writers can create a profile for free and pay fees to host and have their manuscript evaluated on the blacklist site. Agents and editors can access the site for free to search for manuscripts by theme and subgenre. High-rated novels will receive special attention, being highlighted on the site and featured in emails to industry subscribers. The expansion includes the launch of a $10,000 unpublished novel award across 7 categories, plus a $25,000 option deal with a film production company. Additionally, a series of virtual conversations with industry professionals will be offered to educate writers about the publishing business. The blacklist aims to address what they see as a massive market failure by providing high-quality feedback and visibility to talented writers whose work may otherwise remain unseen. This initiative is intended to bridge the gap between the publishing and entertainment industries, creating more opportunities for outstanding fiction projects. I will say I have some experience with Blacklist on the screenwriting side, and this has been this site is beloved by the screenwriting world, and it has been responsible for a lot of the big. I can't name any off the top of my head, but a lot of the big films that we've seen. Slumdog Millionaire is probably the best known. Yeah. So you could be the next Slumdog Millionaire.
I have questions since you have experience, because I was trying to figure some of this out. So you pay $30 a month to have your book up there. You can pay publishing professionals to evaluate 9 or 10 pages of it or something.
Yeah.
How do they get rated? Who rates them? Who has access to read them? So
with the screenplays and stuff, in my experience, it was there. Like, members can actually weigh in. It's almost like 99 Designs when you have someone you have a kind of a contest kind of thing where people can submit their designs and then you have everybody vote on it. It's a similar kind of thing. That was my experience with it. Now, this was quite a while back, so this was probably not long after it was established when I was kind of messing around with it. So I don't know if it still operates the same way. But then also, if there's a lot of stumble upon that happens. People are out actively looking at this thing, trying to find the next hot thing. So there's a lot of activity around each of these submissions.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I mean, because publishing, particularly traditional publishing, just moves so slow, that I'm sure there's not that Hollywood moves any faster, but I guess there's more. I don't know. It feels like they have more of a demand for content, I guess. So it seems like it's an interesting way to sort of like jumpstart your career or get some.
My only concern would be like, who is reading this? Because I don't want to talk about the recent lawsuit that came back in to view with the author who was suing her agent, who allegedly gave her book to a better known author.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe nobody's going to steal your book, but I always have a fear that somebody's going to steal your book. I just wonder what the protections are against that.
Yeah.
Is Slumdog Millionaires the only title that has actually been made from this, or like, is there a list? Because here's my, like, I've got a lot of projects that are in various stages of Hollywood hell, and not one of them has ever come from this type of platform.
Yeah.
The screenwriting in particular, like, most of the times, like for the people that I've talked to, if you go to them with a screenplay, they don't want to see it. The way the projects have all come together, and they all come together differently. And obviously my experience is different from everybody else's, but it tends to be a big name star gets on board or a director gets on board. You pair up with a production company and they know this person, they bring that person in. But like the screenwriter tends to come in like after they get a director or one of these other big players, and the director says, I would like somebody on this list to write the screenplay. And like, they don't want to see a screenplay written by somebody that's not on that list. They want somebody that they've worked with, somebody that they've had experience with. But like, I don't know anybody that actually goes out to like a pool of screenplays and picks them and says, okay, I'm going to make this for Netflix. Like the closest thing I've heard of anything like that is them going out to like NetGalley and trolling the books that are coming out to determine whether they want it. But still, they want that creative control. So that doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just the people that I know in that world, like, this isn't how they're doing it.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder if authors are getting taken
It's
advantage
gonna,
of.
it's going to tend to be more independent studios when it comes to the film side of it. But this as a sort of clearinghouse for people to kind of, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I kind of would like to see a few months of what's going on with it. The only other movie I can think of that was picked up from Blacklist was The King's Speech. That's the only other one.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
A lot of stuff gets produced on a regular basis, and that's two of them. And I'm not saying that this is a bad idea. Like, it might be the greatest idea ever. I would approach it very, very cautiously.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know how it goes, because I'm definitely going to give this a try. So
okay, it's all on you.
It's all on me.
Back in 6 months.
I'll be your Huckleberry. All right. Fewer new books this fall? Blame politics. Publishing industry experts advise against releasing new books during the fall of a presidential election, as it's harder to secure media coverage and attention from social media influencers who are focused on political events. While overall book sales don't show significant declines during election years, fewer new titles tend to be published, particularly from independent presses. Editors suggest publishing before September or waiting until early 2025. Some genres like romance and escapist fiction may remain unaffected or even see a boost as readers seek distraction from the political noise. However, debut and mid-list authors may find it challenging to gain visibility during this period. The notion that books shouldn't be released during the election season is debated within the industry, with some suggesting it's more of a long-held belief than a proven reality. Some publishers continue to release major titles despite the political climate.
I got it.
JD, do you release books during the election?
Well, we have one coming out in November, so JD and I may be screwed. I don't know. What do you think, JD?
It's what, two weeks after the election. I mean, I'm seeing, like in Facebook ads, you see it like getting, like, the price starts to creep up. Your click-through starts to drop because these campaigns are just buying up whatever they can, and that impacts everything else. I don't know that it really impacts book sales that much. I can tell you that the influencers are really tied up. Like, somebody sent me an email last week from the Harris camp, and they're paying influencers $1,500 for TikTok videos. They don't care what side of this thing you're on. Like, if you're willing to create a video and put it out there, they will give you $1,500. And that doesn't mean that Trump's camp's not doing it too. I'm sure that they are. This particular one just got floated and I saw it. But the problem is, if all the influencers are running towards those, they're not going to, spend time creating a book review, for free or for a small, dollar amount. And, the feeds are getting completely filled with these kind of things too. That being said, though, like if if everybody actually does dial back, like that's probably when I would go all in, because if there's nothing releasing a particular week, and your book comes out, you got a better shot at hitting all the different lists, topping the various lists. So I wouldn't let it bother me in any way.
Yeah, I'm going to release a book on election day called "This Is How They Won," an election story.
You're that guy who's got the T-shirts out in front of the Super Bowl stadium like 1 minute after the game is over.
Right. That's right. I just have I have 1,000 of each team, and I just stand out there.
One book is called "How I Won" with Trump on the cover. Another one is "How I Won" with Harris on the cover. You've got them both in the trunk of your car. You're ready to go.
And that's Trump and Harris in the trunk of my car, not the books. I have Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
Okay.
This is how I won.
Kidding.
This is how I went to prison.
I'm not bailing you out, Kevin. Just so you know.
Not again. Never again. All right. Final story. We got an actual update for this one. Second Court upholds lower court ruling on Internet Archive. The Second Circuit Court, and I was supposed to say Second Circuit Court upholds, but the Second Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld a lower court's decision that the Internet Archive's practice of scanning and lending digital books without permission from copyright holders infringes on copyright laws. That's a shocker. The court concluded that this activity does not qualify as, quote, fair use. The court considered the 4 factors of fair use: transformative nature, type of work, amount copied, and market impact, and determined that all 4 factors favor the publisher, noting that the Internet Archive's free digital library likely serves as a substitute for the original works, potentially harming the market for publishers. This is my surprised face. See that?
Yeah, putting out ebooks of the paperback is the same product. Surprise.
Yeah.
Is that service still out there, or did they actually get shut down while it's going through this appeals process?
I believe it's shut down, but I'm not 100% on that. Does anyone know?
I think it's still there, but it's only allowed to have like public domain works or something at this point. I don't know. But see, it doesn't matter because you're stealing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We all knew it.
Stealing bad.
Stealing is bad.
That's the moral of the story. Stealing is bad.
All right. Speaking of stealing, go ahead and steal the show, JD.
Yeah. Who's up this week?
This week we've got Stella Sands coming on. Stella is a best-selling author of multiple true crime books, and her latest is called Word Hunter. It's about a woman who uses her uncanny ability to analyze words and speech patterns to help solve crimes. So here she is, Stella Sands.
Well, hi. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk to you. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So let's start as writers do at the beginning. Your writer's journey. How did you get started writing?
Let's see. Well, it started pretty early. Well, not that early. In high school, I started writing everybody's papers. People would come to me and say, could you do this composition for me? And I'd say, yeah, okay. And then it became a thing. I started writing everybody's. And it just came easy to me. I loved to write. And so I was doing that. And then when I was in college and going for my master's, I started writing a novel. And I thought, as I was writing it, I thought, I'm being really creative and interesting, and this is unique, and I have a new form. I'm creating a new novel form. It had only dialogue and no description. And I thought, whoa, wait until this gets out into the air. Well, it turns out I was writing a play, but it was it was ridiculous. What was I thinking, that I was coming up with a new form? That was insane. So trashed that and started writing plays. And I wrote several, and several got produced off Broadway. And then I stopped doing that for a while because I had a daughter and we needed money. And so I became the editor of a magazine, a children's magazine. And then, this is a big turning point. My daughter would play with a little girl in Central Park. They were 2 and 3 and they played together, and then they didn't see each other because they went to different schools. Fast forward 15 years. And I read in the paper that this little girl who lived and still does down the street from us was just accused of murdering a man in Central Park.
Oh, wow.
So this is Daphne 13 years after we knew her. And she was 15 and her boyfriend was 15 and they did something really terrible. And they were both convicted. And that had been sitting in my mind for maybe 8 months or so. And then I just decided I'm going to send out a summary. I'm going to just, see if anybody's interested in me writing this book. Literally within 2 hours, I went on the internet, found out true crime, agents. Where can I find them? I found maybe 7. And within 2 days, 4 got back to me and said, we want you to do this. So I chose one. And then I started writing that book and that got published. And then from thereafter, St. Martin's took me on and I started writing for them. And I wrote another 6 books, 5 or 6 books, all true crime. So that's the true crime part. And then I stopped writing true crime at one point for reasons, if you care to know those reasons. Do you want to know why I stopped?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Well, when I write true crime, I get really deeply involved. I get involved with the accused and then convicted. And then I get involved with the victims' families, deeply involved, to the point where I'm sort of part of their families. I go to a funeral in the family, not the funeral of the victim, because I didn't know the families then. And it's a deep relationship and deeply disturbing. I would go to prison and I would meet with the convicted. And the prison experience is one that, you never forget, the clank of the door, the going in, the sitting down, the mirror between you, the officer who sits next to you to make sure you don't pass anything under the tiny little hole that you can pass. And the accused or the convicted comes in chained, shackled, chained. It's just overwhelmingly sad on every level.
Yeah.
After the 6th book, or during the 6th book, when I was writing the 6th book, everybody close to me and my family happened to pass away. My mother, my father, my only sister, and my husband within 2 years.
Oh.
By the time the last, I was done. So I was done. I finished that book and said, no more, I'm not doing this. And then, I started writing creatively, and that is a whole other story, write a novel instead of true crime. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it would be much different. How, I guess, one of the things we aim towards writers, and so the writing process, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because I would imagine that the nonfiction process would be very, very different from the adult fiction process, and how that changed for you.
True crime is not, it's not creative. Every time you write, it's creative, but there's a story, there are characters, there's a crime, there's a trial.
Right.
And really can't make up anything except perhaps they had scrambled eggs for breakfast instead of fried, but lawyers check every word. And so you can't really go off and be really creative. So that process is it's not down and dirty, but it's like, you got to do the trial. When you cover a trial, you're not going to, wax poetic about things on the wall or, imagining what's going on. You can't. You have to tell the story. So the process is get it down. There's a third of the book on the crime, and then solving the crime, and then the trial. But when you're doing, fiction of any sort, it's like, whoa, I can have her do anything, and it's so much fun. It was such a relief to create characters who, in my newest book in Word Hunter, Maggie started out as a morbidly obese woman who stayed in a small room and solved crimes that way. And then she morphed into, over the years, as I was writing, almost anorexic, tattooed, pierced, motorcycle riding woman who I'm in love with. I mean, she's just, I just adore her. So the process is so much more free flowing, of course, when you're doing fiction. It just gives you space and joy, whereas the other doesn't really give a lot of joy.
Yeah.
True crime.
It's very heavy material. You hear people talk about narrative nonfiction, and even though there is like the facts of the case, telling a story, like there's so many different components, and you do have to create sort of like that engaging narrative. Does that have like any kind of mirrored process as far as like the structure of the novel or the book? Sorry, with true crime.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. You have to, the true crime has to be interesting. You can't say, he walked into the room, stuck the knife in her belly, and she died on the floor in the pool, and the blood was pooling, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you have to create something really interesting, and you've got to lead up to it, and you've got to lead away from it. So there is a narrative, there is narration, there's a lot that goes on. But from my point of view, you can't make up anything. And that's where I feel the major difference is in writing the two different genres for me, it's much more freeing to do a novel.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Sort of you get to play with who is this character. And I would imagine sometimes in life you don't get those answers, whereas in fiction you can find those answers.
Right. I mean, you can come up with those answers. When I interviewed, a serial killer, for instance, why? There's really no answer from him,
Right.
And the way, and his character, for instance, one person I call him the dating game killer, he was brilliant. He was a photographer. He was creative. He was charming beyond, and handsome. Like, why?
Right.
Why? And, 6 people in the most horrible ways, he killed them. And he wasn't abused as a child. And that's the whole thing, when talking about serial murderers or anybody. Some have been abused terribly, and therefore they abuse. Some have never been touched badly, and yet they do it. So what's going on? Is it just a brain fart, or is it, like a huge one?
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's the age-old question but yeah. When you do novel, I can make up why Maggie has decided to be who she is and why this one has decided that. I can come up with the answer.
Right. Yeah. Can explore that backstory and really create that inner narrative that people can connect with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the fun. That's the fun of writing. I mean, to see what she'll do next. And then if she's doing something and it doesn't feel right, you're off because you know who she is. And then all of a sudden she's, let's say, cutting her steak a certain way. Well, firstly, she'd never eat steak. And secondly, she would hardly do it the right way. So get over yourself and put her in the diner where she belongs and not in the fancy restaurant, unless you want to put her in a fancy restaurant and let her make a fool of herself, let her be awkward.
Yeah.
But it's so fun. I mean, it's just fun.
Yeah, to explore that humanity within I guess boundaries. There are boundaries within fiction while also not having boundaries in fiction, which is kind of an interesting way. I don't know if I would have thought about it necessarily that way before.
Yeah.
So you'd mentioned that you had been a magazine editor for a kids magazine, which is quite different from both true crime and writing thrillers. But I know that one thing a lot of writers, whether they're new or seasoned, sometimes struggle with is that inner editor as you're drafting, just this is terrible and how do I move on? And this sentence is bad. Is that something that you found was harder? Was it easier? What is that process like having played both ends of that spectrum?
It's torture. It's torture. Every word. I have been known to spend an entire day on one sentence, and I'm not the only writer who's done this, going over it, subject go first. No, I'm going to put it at the end. No, if I start with a modifier, if I start with no, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to change it that way. I'm going to rearrange, and I rearrange, and I rearrange, and I rearrange, and I'm happy. I get up the next day, and guess what? It sucks. So I got to do it over again. I do that. It takes me a very long time to write. I'm very much a perfectionist. I edit every word. The editor of my book, they don't have to do much, even in the true crime. And even, I mean, I just heard from a friend that she got 26 single space typewritten notes on her book, which has been accepted, and she has a deal. I don't know if I got a page. I don't even know that I got a page, because it's like, I will work this to death until I get it exactly right. And exactly right is not exactly right anyway. It's just exactly right what I think is exactly right,
Right. Exactly right for you.
But it never shuts off. And even when you talk, when I listen to people talking, I'm all the time like, it's too many words. Try to cut back. I can't stand it when people go, like I'm doing right now because I'm nervous, go on and on. It's like you could have stopped 20 minutes ago. There is no reason to reiterate. And here I go, reiterating just to say. Okay.
Well, that happens sometimes. I think we all sometimes have that inner editor in our head when we speak, particularly when we know we should just shut up already.
But nerves sometimes take over, and you feel like, well, maybe I didn't say it right, so I'm going to say it another 6 times to make sure the person gets what I'm trying to say. And really, you're just being, come on.
Right.
Just
Yeah. Sometimes too, I think it's a curse of a writer, because we have sort of the luxury on the page of fine tuning at our own pace. And, obviously you can't do that when you talk. You have to be quicker. And so I think sometimes maybe that is also part of why I find myself thinking about or talking slower perhaps sometimes.
That's good. Yeah, I know. I do too. I try. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I want to go back just a tiny little bit, and you talked about starting with plays and even having some of them published. What genre were those in? I'm just curious. You've dabbled in so many different realms.
Interesting. The one I liked best was a country and western. I basically believe that I was a country and western singer in my previous life. And from the day I was born, I was drawn to country music. Like, I love it beyond. And so I'm sure I was a country western. So my first play was a country western dance contest where there were 5 couples, all different, two young kids who needed the money in order to get out of their whatever, and then older couple who were on their last legs. And each couple was quite different. And at the end, the audience was to vote. And each night it didn't get produced long enough that we found out. Each night we found, a different couple might win, or maybe the same couple would win. And who would win would not depend necessarily on who could dance the best line dance or whatever dance they were doing. It would be, their backstories, and how you felt sympathetic towards. Maybe, I don't know why people might vote. So one was a country dance, one was a total email. It was just people emailing each other, called E-Me. Another was Lou Passin Through. All different, but not crime.
Yeah, those sound really interesting. And I'm fascinated with the idea of a play with emails, because that seems like, I can picture that in movies, or I can picture that definitely in text, but I don't know that I would have ever thought that you could make a play out of people sending emails. That's very clever.
It was called E-Me, E-Me.
Yeah.
And people were on stage and, reading their emails. So
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. Which, I guess segues right into my next question, which is, how the character of Maggie, and the whole premise of the book. One of the things that immediately drew me to this book was that Maggie uses linguistics to solve crime, which you see a little bit here and there, but I don't know that I've ever actually seen someone using diagramming sentences to cope with stress and trauma, which I thought was so fascinating and was very interesting to actually see all the diagram sentences on the page. Where did that idea come from?
My wonderful 7th grade teacher, Mrs. Barker. Yeah, I mean, I guess I needed a place to land. I always need a place to land. And I guess in 7th grade, I really needed something to focus on. And I never was good at math, never good at science, but this just drew me in, and it was like a puzzle, and I could sit there and I could work on it, and it just felt satisfying. I mean, I think it's the same, word, maybe crossword puzzles, or nowadays Wordle or whatever, I do them all, so I shouldn't say whatever. I mean, I'm serious about these word games. It's just another way to, I don't know why other people do crosswords or Sudoku, or it grounds you. It makes you feel like you're in control a bit, and you have to think a bit, and it does a lot, and it makes you happy when you get one right. And there's a whole lot of emotional stuff that goes on, especially if it's challenging,
Right.
Sunday Times, whatever. So diagramming was a challenge for me, and it was a way to be focused and quiet in my head, because there wasn't a whole lot of other things that could go on if you're trying to figure out where the whatever the adverb goes, or the whatever the other modifier goes. So it just gave me a chance to rest, keep the chatter quiet.
Yeah, I love the word games. Do you ever use it? Sometimes I will use it to decide what I want to say frame of mind I'm in. So like if Wordle comes really easy to me, it's like, all right, I'm ready to sit down and write. But if I'm kind of struggling with it, I'm like, all right, maybe I should do something a little more logical for a bit and see if I can ease into this creativity. Do you ever do that?
It's interesting, because I think success and failure for me can be directly related to Wordle. I mean, if I got it right, and if I got it in 2, which means, it's half luck, 80% luck if you get it in 2. Obviously, you have to get the word right, the
Right.
first one, you have to get enough letters. But then it tells me that, yeah, I've got it. I'm good today. I'm good to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes me 5. It's like, oh, you're a failure.
Oh.
But the other thing is, when I do Wordle, I can always tell my mood, because like the first word could be like storm, and then dire, that's not one, but
Right.
something is dark. I do, and then I realize, not feeling so good today. But if on the other hand, if there's the word gleam and other words like that, I feel, maybe good day. Maybe I'm okay today.
Right. That's so interesting. So do you use different starter words?
Always. I don't think I have ever used the same too. No. And I have friends who do the same. You use the same one?
I'm devoted to the same word. Yes.
I don't even know what that's like. So do you try to have like 3 vowels in it, or 2 vowels? How do you do it?
So I use earth because I thought very hard, long and hard about what word to use to start my opening Wordle strategy. And I thought, well, E and A are pretty popular, and then R and T are pretty popular, and H narrows things down for me. So depending on which ones show up, I can kind of get a good sense of what this word might be.
Well, I'm going to weigh in on that, because I started one time doing the word ending in S, whatever I came up with, like, pious, Pious. And rarely would an answer end in S, because that would be a plural. So they don't do plurals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not good, says Stella, to have an S at the end of your guess word. And I'm wondering if it might not be so good to have an E as your first letter, because it would be rare if that were green, because not that many words, begin with.
I know there's whole forums on Wordle strategy. There have been a couple words that start with E, and so then
so great.
Yeah, then it kind of starts. Yeah, it's usually I've gotten it on 2
Whoa.
handful of times.
Mhm.
I'm pretty, I average between 3 and 4. Like I don't know if I count it as a failure at 5 and 6, but it's definitely like, okay, we need to slow down. We need to take a deep breath. We need to
If
focus
Cyber,
on what these words are.
no, sometimes it's so much strategy. We could just talk Wordle forever, but
I
there's so
know.
much. Yeah, okay, let's. Yeah, it does. If you do it when you wake up, which is what I do, after coffee, it sort of sets the seat for the day. I either feel good or not so good, or I have to get over myself, or it's like a whole thing. So
Yes,
enough.
I absolutely agree. Well, speaking of, strategic arts, so the diagramming sentences, I just kind of want to go back to that a little bit. Um, that definitely feels like I don't know that I have thought about diagramming a sentence since I was in maybe 7th or 8th grade. That's not something that comes up a lot. And as I was reading the book, and seeing these diagram sentences and realizing, especially some of these longer sentences in different novels and how complicated they can be. And it took me a while to even kind of piece together how the diagram sentence went. Do you think that's something, if writers are particularly fond of word games, that can help a writer?
I'm not sure that it would help a seasoned writer, people who it can help people who maybe don't write or speak perfect grammar. Like if you say, let's just say the patient was referred to the doctor with severe stomach pains. So the doctor doesn't have severe stomach pains.
Mhm.
So the patient with severe stomach. So when you're diagramming it, when you write the patient with severe stomach pains as the modifier, there's a preposition, has to come under the patient. It can't go under the doctor. So if you put it under the doctor and then you read it, you realize, well, the doctor doesn't have severe, it's got to go over there. So it helps make your grammar better if you analyze your diagram. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's sort of more, maybe not for writing, but perhaps if someone were looking for a way to sharpen up their editing skills, I wonder if that would be.
Yes, I think it could. Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. It was just so interesting to read that and really kind of think about, could I diagram a sentence right now?
It's so fun. And, it's the same thing. It's fun when you get it right, when you see that it's working as a diagram. It's for visual, it's visual. It's a visual. Learners can use it to understand the parts of the sentence and how they're connected. And it's a challenge. So it's like any other challenge, like any other word challenge.
Yeah, I can definitely see, sometimes as I'm writing, even if I'm going back and editing, it's, you write a sentence and then you delete a sentence and then you write it again. And then it's you move this over here and something's just not working. And it occurred to me as I was thinking about your novel, if that might be something like, oh, I wonder if I just took a second and like tried to diagram the sentence out, if that might help unstick it in a way.
I think it probably could. Yeah. That sounds like, I'm going to try that one next time I'm stuck. I'm going to just add my sentences and unstick.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to put that in my back pocket. I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, great.
So, you had those the true crime books that you wrote, the 5 or 6, I think 6. And then you moved into thrillers. What do you think true crime taught you about writing a thriller, and how can thriller writers use true crime to make their novels better?
A good true crime book will have a lot of suspense. You don't know who's going to be, the one who killed or whatever. You have to know pacing. You have to have characters who are sympathetic. I mean, there's a lot in true crime that is the same as in a thriller or in a mystery of any sort. I guess it's a lot of pacing and a lot of psyche. You have to understand the psyche of the people you're doing. I mean, when you write a true crime book, a lot of it has to do with the perpetrator. You've got to get into his head. So I guess the true crime can, and also true crime can show you how stupid some killers can be, like what they do and how they leave clues. And I mean, that's done so many times on TV and stuff. It's like they write too much, they speak too much, they, go back to the scene, all this kind of stuff. So in true crime, when you find out the true story, you can use those facts either to or not to in your book because it either works or it doesn't work. Like you're not going to have your criminal do something that is clearly, easily solvable.
Right.
So I think true crime can, you shouldn't. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's this psyche and pacing and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I know I've heard before, Michelle McNamara's book is one of those books that everyone's always like, if you want to write horror and you want to get that tension, that's a book to really read and study. And so you've not just used them to read, you've researched and written them.
There's a lot of research that goes into true crime, a lot. And in my novel, a lot of research. I mean, forensic linguistics was not something I grew up, even knowing about.
Right.
And this came about when the Unabomber's manifesto was, when his brother read it and he saw that there were certain words and phrases, you can't eat your cake and have it too. He did things and he wrote, like broad and chick, which told the era that he probably grew up in. So when I saw that the Unabomber was partly solved by using forensic linguistics, it's like, oh my gosh, this is an area I just really want to know. So I started studying it, and that's the way I got into forensic linguistics. It's a fascinating field. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it sounded very fascinating. And even without getting into spoilers, but even, the rhythm of certain words and how, that sort of subconsciously bled into different things that helped Maggie figure out who done it, so to speak, was
Yeah, yes, exactly right.
was it hard coming up with the phrasing and all of that?
You try, this one works. Oh, darn it. I spent the last month on something. And it's like, no, that's too easy. Or everybody would know that if the person said like, I don't know, some absolute, God bless her or something, or honey or sweetie. It's like, yeah, so she's from the South. So she's, Georgia. She's, oh, you peach. So you just have to start all over again because then you'd find it's just too easy. So you have to come up with some interesting ways of solving crimes through words. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun though to play with.
So fun. It's so fun, finally having fun after like a decade. I mean, I love writing anything. I'll just write. Want me to write something? I'll write it. But, I think, the heartache of the families of crime, true crime, is unbearable. It's for them. And then, when you get, it's something that you just can't, okay, on to the next. What's this book about? Okay, we'll move on. It stays with you. And, just how much can you keep?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. It does feel like there would be a pressure, like an obligation to, really get everything right in a way that is much different when you're dealing with fiction.
Absolutely right. And when the families, appreciate the book and feel like like I have presented their loved one, in a way that would honor them. I mean, that's the reward.
Yeah, that much better than with fiction, I would assume.
Yeah. I mean, Maggie's mother's dead. I don't know what she would say about how I'm presenting Maggie,
Right. So I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, but I know that the ending is a little um could potentially lead to more. Will we be seeing more of Maggie?
We are already over a third into the sequel.
Oh, very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. We will see more.
All right, excellent. Well, I look forward to that. We usually end our show, again, like we've talked about, this is, writers and upcoming writers. So we like to end on one final question. What's one piece of advice you would give to new or aspiring writers?
Love your characters. Love them deeply and want to spend time with them. I can't imagine writing a book, a novel, which takes a long time, at least for me, with somebody who is like, okay, so she goes into the cafeteria and she eats this, and it's like, okay, fine. I so deeply love Maggie. I would rather spend my day with her than almost anybody else. And I love putting her in situations and seeing what she'll do. Like, that's the surprise.
Yeah.
She'll go into the diner and I don't know, can I curse here? Is she going to say, fuck you, everybody, stand up. I'm here. Like, everybody applaud me. Or is she going to walk in and kind of sit down and think about things? So it's like, she can do anything.
Yeah.
I want to know what she's going to do right then. And so that's the fun of writing. That's what I suggest. If you're writing a novel, you better love your characters, because you're going to be bored to death if you don't.
I would absolutely agree with that. They definitely become part of you in surprising ways. Well, this has just been such a delight. Thank you so much for talking.
It's been a delight for me. You're wonderful. Thank you for this interview. It's really been special. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Okay. What's your Wordle opening?
Okay. I was actually going to interject, and I have never played Wordle.
What?
Yeah, what? I don't even know what it is.
Are you kidding?
I know it has something to do with it looks like Tetris pieces.
So, okay, so I can't.
You're not alone. I've never played it either. Like I know of it. I've never opened it up. I couldn't.
Christine, what are we going to do with these two?
There is a word you have to guess. It is 5 letters long. You have 6 chances to guess the word.
Yeah, and then so the tile. So you have like an opening word.
Yeah.
And you put that as your number 1. And then if you get the right letter in the right spot, the tile turns green. If you get the right letter in the wrong spot, it turns yellow. And if it is the letter's not in the word, it turns gray. And so it's a very fun, like, process of elimination, logic, strategy,
it
word
started
game.
as an independent game, and then the New York Times bought it. So yeah, so it's very fun. I use a free version. We can talk about that later.
I'm too busy playing another word game called Writing a Book.
I do it. I do it when I wake up in the morning. It wakes my brain up. But okay,
I use it as like it's sort of like a startup. Like, all right, like, where am I at creatively? I love it, but I love all the.
I have just been, since this interview, just perplexed why you use Earth instead of heart. Because I'm like, it's the same letters.
It is the same letters, but here's why. Because
strategy.
Yes. So because H more frequently comes at the end of a word, as in like CH, TH, GH. And so you get a higher hit rate with that. And then you get EAR. It's very rare for a word to start with E. So if you get that right away, then it really narrows down your options.
Well, that's been Wordle Talk, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode.
You don't want to hear my word?
I could have written 400 words in the amount of time you guys just talked about Wordle. Like, I'm not going there. I don't want to know what.
Okay, no, this is going to blow your mind. My opening word is adieu, ADIEU, because I like all my vowels. I got to find them first.
I considered that one as my opening word at one point, but I went with Earth, and it's been pretty good to me. I've gotten it on too, like, quite a lot of times. So fine.
Moving on.
Moving on. I'm going to make both of you play Wordle in November. Okay. Have you ever written, let's go back to college days, anyone's papers, and did they pay you for it?
Oh yeah.
Me too.
I
did it too.
Yeah, I made bank in high school for sure. Yeah.
I did it in college, not in high school, but yeah, I would write people's papers in college.
And to me, I'd like to take this time to send a special message to my senior English teacher, Mrs. Knight, who told my friend David after I graduated that she never understood a single word I ever wrote, and was constantly giving me low marks on papers. But I wrote every paper she read for an entire semester in that class. I made a point of it.
And it never once occurred to her, like, these are sounding awfully familiar.
No, she never caught on. And there were A's across the board. So she definitely had something against me. Hi, Mrs. Knight.
Mrs. Knight. What about you, Christine? You ever write anything?
So believe it or not, English was not my strong subject. It's probably my worst subject. But I did do physics study notes for my friends in college. I did all the textbook and formulas for my friends, and they paid me to do their physics studying.
When I was in college, they had a program, and I paid for half of my early classes, like the 101s, the mandatory credits, where I took notes in the class, and I went to, because it was for people who had different various disabilities and couldn't take notes. Yeah. So I took notes, went down to the learning center, made photocopies of my notes, and then they paid for my class. So I basically got to take free classes just for taking notes and giving people copies of my notes.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty cool.
I have to hear JD's answers. Did you write people's papers?
I was. What's the statute of limitations on this stuff?
Yeah, I'm hoping that's over. Yeah.
I was bad. I would not only write stuff and sell that, but I would also buy papers, buy notes from other students, and then resell it. Resell copies of it. I was the go-to guy for changing grades on report cards if you wanted to go that route. And I love that particular game because I don't know how they do it in today's world, but these were paper report cards you had to take home. So if I hooked you as a customer, like the first quarter of the year, you had to keep buying that report card for the other 4 quarters because otherwise your parents would see your real grade. So you have to buy a bogus report card for the rest of the year. And then that went electronic, and I was hacking and doing it. Yeah, so I was bad. But I had it like a menu that I would hand out, and my friends would pass it out, and everybody would float these menus with the various prices of all these different services I could do. And that fell into the hands of my the administration my junior year. So they kind of shut me down. They didn't actually catch me. I didn't get in trouble for it, but they basically told me, we know what you're doing and we will if you don't stop. And I quit at that point. But
did you ever have anyone that you changed the grades for that then ended up getting held back? And how did that I can't even imagine the parents are just what do you mean you have to repeat?
that never actually happened that I'm aware of, but that's a very good point because I changed a lot of F's to D's and or F's to B's,
yeah. F to B is the easiest one.
That is a very easy one.
I got asked by our school principal and the head of the computer science department to help track down whoever it was who had hacked in to the computer lab and started accessing records.
And it was you.
And it was me. So I never found them.
Wow, weird. Yeah, it's a cold case to this day.
We're all going to prison after this episode.
Oh, not me. Not me.
Christine and I aren't.
We're good. Again,
I'm taking you with me.
We're not bailing you out.
If I'm going down,
wrong number.
We're all going down.
All right. What is the longest you've ever spent on a single sentence?
Hold my beer. Let me warm up.
What this actually made me think of, there's a book called Reacher Said Nothing, and I think we've talked about this before, but a reporter sat on Lee Child's couch as he wrote one of the Jack Reacher books, and there's one sentence that Lee keeps going back to throughout the whole thing is like a callback. And I think at the end of the book, that sentence is down to like 3 or 4 words. Like he just keeps chopping away and making it shorter and more concise. I don't necessarily do that, and like it's funny, like the whole idea of like diagramming a sentence, like, this is your subject, this is your verb, this is this is that, like that just makes my head hurt. And it's not like I've read so much that like the structure is intrinsically in my head. Like I know if it's right, I know if it's wrong. I don't necessarily understand why.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think I want that knowledge. I can tell you that like as I'm writing, that's when I tend to make most of those mistakes. Like, but I catch them like the next day, because the next day I tend to go back and reread what I wrote the previous day. And like, I think just because I'm far enough removed from it, this 24 hours later, I'm seeing it more as a reader than the writer. Because if you're too close to it, like your brain just will skip over stuff. It's very similar to those word puzzles, where the first and last letter of a word is correct and everything in between is scrambled, but you can still read it.
Not if you start with Earth.
Not if you start with Earth. This is true.
So did you guys learn sentence diagramming in like grade school?
We never did it.
I didn't either.
I did. I learned it very briefly, I think in, was it 5th or 6th grade? It was one of those two. I don't exactly remember which one, but I never had to do it in high school or anything. It was like a very early class. I did it once. Like I could probably diagram a very simple sentence, but like some of the really complicated ones, I don't know if I were taken
school like at a weird time, right? It was all like they're like, we're going to do open concept schools and whole word reading, so we didn't even do phonics. Like, I don't know.
We didn't
Schools
do
are
phonics,
weird
but
sometimes.
I was as an English major. One of the senior seminars I took, one of the options was this like advanced grammar thing, and I took it because I'd already taken everything else. And she had everyone start diagramming sentences, and I'm like, "What are you even talking? Like, what is this?" And she was astounded that I had not ever encountered it. So I never did learn it. I was just making. She's like, "You're just making stuff up. You're just putting stuff in the little brackets, like the noun." That's.
It is weird how things are different, though. But can I just say that not learning phonics when you go into biochem in university is not great, because then you get these like Latin names in biology and these chemicals, and I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea how to say that.
Oh wow.
Interesting. I don't know if I learned phonics in school. I know that when I was growing up, Hooked on Phonics worked for me. Wasn't that like an infomercial or something? A commercial?
Yeah.
I feel like I remember that. That's been ingrained deeply in my brain. So I probably learned it at some point. Yeah. It was really interesting because she actually had diagram sentences in the book. So like I was reading and like twisting the book around, some of them were easy. I was like, all right, I get it. And then some of them, like, I was like, if I didn't know what the sentence said before, I would not have been able to like put the sentence together in a way that made sense from the diagram.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a game room at Author Nation. Join us to play Wordle and diagram sentences. And with that, JD, who is up next week?
I am not going anywhere near that room.
Miss Sally, I'm out.
Next week, we've got Taylor Moore coming on. Taylor's a former CIA intelligence officer who worked in both analysis and operations and later consulted for the Department of Defense. He's here to tell us all about his latest novel. It's called Cold Trial, and it releases September 17th. These are always fun, so you don't want to miss that. Taylor Moore.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.